When Abigail stepped off the dusty pickup truck with a worn suitcase in her trembling hand, the laughter of her cousins still echoed in her ears. "Let the fat girl live with the pig farmer," they'd snorted, their cruel joke ringing in the silence as the truck disappeared down the dirt road. Abigail tried to stand tall, but the humiliation clung to her like the summer heat. The old wooden house looked like it had seen better days, and the man who greeted her, gray-bearded, sunburned, and belly exposed, only reinforced her worst fears. Behind him stood a tall, rugged man in a plaid shirt and worn jeans, his expression unreadable. He didn't laugh. He didn't stare. He simply nodded and extended his hand. "Name's Caleb," he said. "This here's my uncle, Earl. You'll be safe here." Safe. It was a word she hadn't felt in years. Abigail's parents had died when she was 12, and since then she'd bounced from one indifferent relative to another. Her mother's sisters had taken her in not out of love, but out of obligation, and she knew it. They fed her, clothed her, and reminded her every day how much of a burden she was. Her weight, her silence, her dreams, they were all problems to be solved or ignored. And now she was here. Dumped like an unwanted thing. With two men she'd never met. "I can help with chores," she said softly, her voice barely audible as she clutched her suitcase. "We don't expect anything right away," Caleb replied. "You've been through enough." That first night, Abigail cried herself to sleep in the small guest room, surrounded by the scent of old wood and lavender. But in the morning, something different happened. She woke to the sound of roosters, the warmth of sunlight on her face, and the smell of fresh cornbread drifting through the hallway. Earl had made breakfast. "You better eat, girl," he grumbled without looking up. "Skinny or not, nobody goes hungry under my roof." The days that followed moved slowly, like syrup down a jar. Abigail helped gather eggs, swept the porch, and fed the chickens. She kept expecting mockery, judgment, or impatient sighs, but none came. Caleb worked long hours in the fields and repaired old tools in the barn, always polite, always quiet. He never once looked at her with pity. Just calm, steady respect. One evening, as the sun dipped below the trees and the sky turned golden, Caleb found her sitting on the porch, sketching the landscape in an old notebook she thought she'd lost during the move. "You draw?" he asked, surprised. Abigail nodded, embarrassed. "It's just something I do. Helps me think." He looked at the sketch, rows of corn, Earl feeding the chickens, the old blue truck beside the barn. "You're good," he said, then added after a pause, "real good." No one had ever told her that before. Over the weeks, something inside her began to shift. She started smiling. She laughed with Earl, who was gruff but had a kind heart beneath his dirt-streaked shirt. She talked more with Caleb, discovering they both loved music, long walks, and quiet mornings. She cooked with them, told stories, and one night even sang, softly, while they sat around the fire pit. And slowly, her reflection in the mirror stopped making her flinch. She was still Abigail, still big, still quiet, but now she stood straighter. Her eyes had light in them again. Her laughter didn't feel like a betrayal. For the first time in years, she felt like she belonged. Then one afternoon, everything changed. A shiny black SUV rolled up the dirt road, its tires kicking up clouds of dust. Abigail's aunt stepped out, dressed in designer jeans and too much perfume, her lips curled in disgust. "Well," she sneered, scanning the house and the farm. "Had enough of this peasant life?" Abigail stood tall. "What do you want?" "I've come to take you back. Your cousin's wedding is in 2 weeks and people are asking about you. We can't have them thinking we abandoned you." Abigail hesitated. Once, she would have gone running back at the smallest hint of acceptance. But now she looked over at Earl, who was wiping his hands on a towel, and at Caleb, who stood by the porch, his eyes locked on hers. "No," she said. "I'm not coming back with you." Her aunt gasped. What do you mean, no? You think you belong here with these nobodies? Caleb stepped forward then, his voice calm but firm. You should go. The SUV left in a huff. Abigail turned to Caleb, her chest tight with nerves. Do you think I was wrong? He shook his head. No. You chose what felt right. That takes strength. She bit her lip. You've been kind to me. I don't understand why. Caleb smiled gently. Maybe it's time you did. He walked her out back, past the barn and through a path she hadn't noticed before. They reached a clearing, where a sprawling orchard of blooming apple trees stretched toward the horizon. There were workers tending the fields, machines humming in the distance, and a large warehouse nestled beyond the hills. This, Caleb said, is ours. Abigail's eyes widened. Yours? He nodded. My parents started this farm from nothing. I expanded it over the years. We supply fruit to half the state and run a non-profit for struggling farmers. We keep things simple by choice. She stared at him, overwhelmed. But, why didn't you tell me? He shrugged. Because your worth had nothing to do with my money. I wanted you to know kindness before you knew fortune. Abigail's eyes welled with tears. All my life, I was made to feel like a joke, like I wasn't enough. Caleb stepped closer. You're more than enough, Abigail. You're the strongest, kindest person I've ever known. That night, as stars lit up the sky and fireflies danced among the apple trees, Abigail sat with Caleb and Earl on the porch. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. In the silence, she found peace. She had been left behind as a joke. But in the heart of kindness, on a farm filled with love, she had found something far greater. She had found home.